This is Coder Radio, episode 470, recorded June 9th, 2022. Hello, friends, and welcome into Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. My name is Chris, and joining us in his podcasting position, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Misa here.
Yes, you are. You are. And honestly, that's 80% of the battle, my friend. Maybe even 85. You know what I mean? That's what I'm sticking with right now. I sometimes overdo it, and I'm in denial about overdoing it until my health starts to fail, and then I zoom out and go, oh, I did it again. You know? I did it again. Boy, I am so damn busy, and I've been thinking about it. Why is it? As a podcaster, you know? Why is a guy who's doing podcasts, why am I so effing busy and I just keep getting busier? And I have ways of gauging this. Like, you know, when like you got emails in your inbox that are like about sales and closing a sale, but you just like haven't gotten to it for a week because you just haven't gotten a chance to get to your email. It's kind of weeks. I'm having weeks of that right now. And it's like, I thought when I restarted the indie thing, I'd take all these things I learned and I'd avoid this problem altogether. Again, you know, I'll do better this time. No, it's way worse. It's way worse.
This time will be different.
No, it's worse. And you know what I realized? A, I went from having a big team to a real small team. But B, I repeated a critical mistake that I made last time. An absolute critical mistake. And this is a bit of wisdom I want to pass on to people out there thinking about starting a side hustle or doing their own gig. Only do one job. I didn't realize it, but I gave myself two jobs. We got a whole slate of shows over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. And that, running those shows and creating content and going through and all the follow-up that it requires, all of the work, that, you know, when you have 4 or 5 shows, that's more than a full-time job, my friends. But then the other thing I did, because I was the best candidate for it, is I'm also the ad sales guy, right? I'm the one that communicates with the sponsors. I go out there, and essentially with ad sales, you're always selling because these deals take sometimes 6 months to line up. You're always following up. You're every opportunity you get, you're jumping onto a video call or doing a meeting. You're always replying to questions or modifications. It's a full-time job itself, and both of them never end, right? That there's always a show within a couple of hours, within a few hours that needs to start. I need to start working on. I always have to be working on the sponsor stuff, always, because if you stop, then like 3, 4, 5 months down the road, all revenue stops coming in. It's like, it's bad, right? And so I think it's a super common mistake in new media that a lot of people that start their own new media company think it's a really common mistake. And then I think what happens is most of them burn out. Like they don't make it 15 years, right? They make it 5, 10 years at most, and then they burn out. But I just keep going because I'm in denial about it until I like look around and see like all the rubble around me of things that I have failed to do or forgotten about or didn't get to. And I'm like, oh, I've done it again. And then I start realizing, oh, my health's I'm kind of falling apart. What's going on? Oh, I'm such an idiot. And I can't believe I find myself here like almost once a quarter at this rate. It's so frustrating because I'm just so helpless, apparently. Do you just, you know what I'm looking? I'm looking just to tell me you struggle like this too. I just need to know. I need to know it's not just me.
Between, you know, IT infrastructure, dev, sales, I mean, I don't know how you avoid not having 2 or 3 hats, though.
Right, because there's the whole infrastructure side of things, too. Thank God I get help from Wes on that. Woof. And Alex. You know, Alex has been really helpful there, too. Those guys are great. But, yeah, there's a lot there. So just my bit of wisdom my lesson I have learned from this is when you're creating a job for yourself, try to give yourself just one job. And then try to delegate all that stuff you can. It's really hard depending on the niche you're in. Sometimes there isn't the revenue to delegate. That's always the number one feedback that always comes in. Oh, Chris, you just need to learn to delegate. All right, well, send that with a $100,000 boost, you know, and I'll hire somebody and I'll delegate. In the meantime, I'm gonna have to figure it out on my own. Well, we got a bunch of feedback. People who are working in remote virtual desktops. Something you and I brought up recently on the show, and I wanted to get to some of this. Alex Gates wrote in. He said, my last gig, we configured a medium-sized Azure virtual desktop environment, and it was really good. Anyone that got it pretty much ditched their laptops. This is primarily because of limitations for budgets on new hardware. of course, cheap, crappy company laptops over a powerful remote system. That makes sense. The virtual desktops are all RDP based, like I imagine most dev boxes would be. They did end up having a lot of engineers using the environment with 3D accelerated CAD setups even. In a gig like that, I'd take a virtual remote desktop over a local one any day of the week, assuming it was on an RDP-based system. And that actually seems to be surprisingly the maker or breaker is what is the remote connection protocol being used. Citrix and RDP seem to be the favorite of the audience, and then it kind of goes downhill from there. And that just can make all the difference with the latency of the connection. Kind of on the same line, Matthias shared the joys and the sorrows of running their dev environment on the Google Cloud infrastructure. They write, I'm a DevOps person for a web hosting company here, and I got some sorrows and some joys of remote VMs. The joys, I have easy access to support developers and see what they are seeing in real time and deploy the same automation on the same OS as our staging and prod environments. All right. I've done remote support. I acknowledge remote support's way better there. And the staging stuff. This, again, I think is an area that comes up where people want something they can easily stage, easily deploy to all their developers. The biggest issue is resource consumption. VS Code has a bunch of useful extensions like LiveShare and IntelliSense, and our devs love it, but sometimes it can use 1 gig of RAM for each remote session. So resource consumption issues can also run us out of memory. That can be a problem. Though this seems like a common issue with any sort of virtual desktop environment, at least ones that I've run into. We're planning on moving back to the local dev environment based on Docker, but that will also mean another platform that needs to be maintained since we'll need to replicate any changes from our current VM and Ansible-based setup in Docker. There you go. I mean, that was really, I think, the highlights of it. We got a note, too, from Summer Evans. They love the remote setup. They say, when the pandemic started, I was working as a .NET developer at a Windows desktop. We weren't allowed to bring home our desktop computers, so I ended up remoting into my desktop. It was horrible at first because of bad internet, but now that that's been fixed, I work at a company where I work on open source now, and I have a VPS set up on my own with tmux, and I remote in there for most of my daily work. I like it a lot. I can switch between computers quickly and resume my work. And tmux is way more lightweight than anything graphical.
I wonder how that holds up if the internet connection is crappy.
That's definitely where it goes sideways, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, although that's getting better, especially, a lot of home connections are wired.
I don't know, right? I mean, have you ever heard of Comcast?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we know. We know just doing this show for years. There's some days where things are just bad, and there's nothing you can do about it. Squirrely Dave wrote in to say that he works in Citrix when remote, and then when he goes into the office, they issue him a Chromebook, which he says, I mean, that's fine because, quote, I don't actually get any work done in the office.
Seems mean, but yeah, I like it.
It was a jab at you. It totally was. It was.
Right on the chin. Right in the kisser.
We got more feedback, and we'd love to collect some more. We're recording another episode on Monday in our regular time. We're doing a special recording right now.
Especial.
That's right. Coder on a Thursday because we're getting ready for some travel. So some extra feedback would be great. Go over to coder.show/contact or grab a new podcasting app and send us in a boost. A quick mention about the London meetup coming up in August. There's been a day change, so be sure you're going to meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting and you've joined the meetup so that way you know all the deets. Because there's some flight changes, so there's a slight day change. Everything's over at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting because, yes, Alex from Self-Hosted will be in London in August, and there is a meetup getting organized. Mike and I won't be there. Well, at least not this time. But when we land that big Ford EV sponsorship and we got, big Ford money, maybe we'll go do a show in London.
I got that big Ford energy. I like it. I really like it.
Tailscale.com/code or go there to get a free account up to 20 devices. I love Tailscale. It is a zero config VPN. It installs on any device in minutes, and not a week goes by where I don't see multiple community members' lives change because of Tailscale. Not exaggerating. Happened this morning before I sat down to record. Maybe that's why I'm super hyped right now. A great conversation in our Telegram group about a user who was transitioning from a really kind of brittle open VPN setup to Tailscale and then using ACLs and exit nodes to really complete the picture for them. It's so great. You see, devices connect directly to each other using WireGuard's noise protocol encryption. You build a mesh VPN network powered by WireGuard. You can quickly create secure ACLs too to share one machine with somebody. It'll bust through carrier-grade NAT. I can attest to that. I have been in I'm not even kidding, triple NAT deep, and Tailscale still works. That's how I keep all my family's computers connected so I can do remote support when my kids aren't at home with me. It's super handy for getting into my work systems, prepping for a show when I'm on the road. And you'll get it running on just about any. I've got it on Raspberry Pi. I got it on my iPhone. I got it on an iPad. I got it on my Linux boxes. It's part of my basic NixOS configuration now. When I deploy a NixOS box, it deploys with Tailscale. Seriously. So go try it for yourself for free, up to 20 machines at tailscale.com/coder. This is the modern way to do VPNs. Every other VPN I've ever used feels so old after I've switched to Tailscale. Go try it for yourself. Tailscale.com/coder. Well, I got my HP DevOne since we gathered together last time. And I know you've been going all in, using it as your daily driver since we last chatted. I think this is worth talking about more. In fact, I think this is going to be a big topic of conversation in the Linux community over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. You go first, because I've been waiting for your feedback, and you have been quite the tease.
I have been saving it for the show.
You coquettish bastard. Sorry.
I just wanted to kind of, get your live reactions out there. Capture it raw. I feel like this is potentially a laptop that is going to fill a very critical space in the Linux ecosystem. So traditionally, I can tell you that we have been lacking just something very simple. When somebody comes and says, hey, I'd like a great laptop to run Linux, what do you recommend? You need a chart of, are they a ThinkPad person potentially? Are they going to be an XPS person? Should we be sending them to System 76? There's all of these potential avenues you could go down, and you have to ask them all of these questions. And there's not just a go to this website and order this configuration. And that is exactly how it is on the MacBook world. Pretty much anybody could go buy a MacBook Air M2 now, whatever model they want, even the base model, and it's going to be good enough for 90% of people out there. We haven't had that in Linux. We've had all of these variables. And so I have felt for a long time that Dell was so close to cinching that. If Dell just made it a little more discoverable, a little simpler, a little less of a Dell experience to get the XPS, and if they just kind of leaned into it a bit more instead of kind of fade like they seem to be, the XPS could have really kind of grabbed that Linux King crown of laptops. In fact, today as we record, a brand new XPS 13 has just been announced. Not the Linux edition, but a new XPS 13 that the Linux edition will probably be based on at some point in the future. That's been announced. And it's more in a direction I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, it has a new Intel processor in there. It has a smaller motherboard. It has better battery life. Those things are good. But it has one USB-C port on each side, 2 USB-C ports total. It has a butterfly-style chiclet keyboard, right? It's going the wrong direction in other areas. And it's also based around an Intel platform, which for some of us, there's just less enthusiasm about these days. So it just kind of wasn't quite getting that king status. And you'd really like it to be a piece of hardware that comes from a tier 1 OEM vendor that can ship, that has scale, that has deep supply chain connections, that kind of stuff, especially these days. And the HP DevOne, I think, is the best candidate for the King of Linux laptops crown that we have seen in a long time. And it just took them getting the formula right. You can tell where they decided to take risks, and you can tell where they decided not to take risks. And the risk that they decided to take here was to make a Linux-focused laptop. And then they didn't take a lot of risks with the hardware design. It's not really anything exceptional, but it's also not below anything you'd expect. They kind of just got it right there in the middle with the hardware design. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's it's good. It's definitely, if you're looking for a wafer thin MacBook Air, this is probably not for you. But if you're looking for a more practical is the word that comes to mind, right? With
a slightly better design look than say a ThinkPad, right?
Yeah,
it's got that magnesium alloy chassis, which at first I thought might be plastic. I couldn't tell because it was so light.
I actually thought it was plastic.
So then it really kind of came down to how does it work for me? And I'm still planning to throw like a bunch of synthetic benchmarks at it and a lot of scenarios, which I haven't done yet. And I haven't still gotten a good grasp of its battery life capacity. But I do feel like I have a very good grasp on how it works for my kind of maximum workload scenario. So like when I sit down and I set up a laptop for the first time or after I've reloaded it, I will have Steam downloading and installing a game in the background while I have apt or whatever, DNF, whatever, installing packages while I also have Flatpak installing like 30 packages. And I will have all of this going while I'm also browsing the web, probably watching some YouTube. I have a Matrix chat open. Absolutely. I have Telegram open. Absolutely. Probably have Slack open as well. I have probably 3 or 4 desktops, virtual desktops deep while I'm doing this. Or I'm doing all of that, and if I'm not downloading a Steam game, I'm pre-caching the shaders for like the performance. That's generally how I work. It's a very ADD style where I have a lot of things going on at once, and so if I can install a Flatpak and a deb package at the same time, I will. And why not? During all of that, which I was doing for a solid 3-4 hours, the fans never kicked up. That just never happens on a Linux laptop. Even during the pre-caching of the shaders for my games, the fans did not kick up. The performance never lagged. It never missed a beat. I was very impressed. The only time I heard the fans actually go on was when the game finally started. Even then, the speakers are so damn good that it was absolutely no issue. And even with the fans going, it's still quieter than every other laptop I have once the fans kick up. Maybe aside from the MacBook. When I had that experience, I started getting a little more serious about the laptop because I was like, okay, I just threw a lot at this, and then it loaded my frickin' video game, and then I played my video game on this thing. That's a big deal because if I've got $1,000 to spend, if I've got $1,200 to spend, I game very rarely, but when I do game, I want to be able to do that, and that's getting better and better on Linux than ever. In fact, if it's an area where the Linux desktop is significantly more competitive than the Mac desktop. And so that's an area where if I'm going to have a Linux box, I want to be able to play video games. But on my ThinkPad, where it's all in Intel configuration, the Intel graphics are just not powerful enough. And on other systems where I have a Intel and NVIDIA, it's a real pain in the neck to manage that. And it makes it harder to flip between distributions like a maniac. It strikes that balance because the built-in integrated AMD GPU is good enough that I was playing Halo last night on it. And it was totally playable.
Ooh. Now, how noobish were you, though? Let's get to the heart of the matter.
Oh, I haven't played Halo since like the early Xbox days, man. So it was rough.
Yeah, I tried some Infinity myself. Wasn't a good idea.
The other game that I threw at it, which is always very complex, and it murders every other system I have, unfortunately, for whatever reason, is Star Trek Online. It's not even that new of a game, but maybe it's just not super optimized.
Star Trek Online, say you?
Mm-hmm. So like a 10-year-old MMO.
Okay, I was thinking, what was I thinking? Stowe?
Yeah, it's Stowe. Yeah, yep, it's Stowe. Yeah, and they've kept it going. It's still going, man. And so I loaded it on there, which I have legitimately like 10 years of experience of getting this game working on Linux. So it's like a great test for me in that regard. It's so freaking flawless now. And I'm not a big gamer, obviously, but I absolutely felt like this laptop would accomplish all of my gaming needs, which is a nice box to check for this thing. Then on top of that, I feel like it's not like a blowaway trackpad, but it's an above average trackpad. Yeah. It's better than probably every other trackpad out there on a Linux machine. This probably has the best speakers of any Linux laptop shipping today. What was your impression of the speakers?
So I was surprised that I could easily do Slack and Zoom calls, such as the one we were on, which some pro plugged the show because, you got to have that going, without like a headset or mic or anything, and it was pretty good. I started off iffy, and then I fell in love with the machine until mine is getting sent back for a replacement.
Oh, yeah. So tell us what happened there.
The USB-C charging has just stopped working. So after a good hustle by the System 76 people to try to figure out, what was the software, it was concluded that it's actually a hardware issue. Could have shorted out, whatever. So I will unfortunately be HP DevOne list. I do have the review unit. But, it's such a pain in the butt to kind of move into a whole system just to have to wipe it, knowing that if I wait till like Monday or Tuesday, I'll have another one, according to HP. So super good support though. And other than that one issue, is going to be my daily driver once I have the repaired unit. And the reason I care so much about the USB-C, are we allowed to talk about that little meeting we were in or no?
Yeah, I think we should mention it. You and I were on a call with HP and System 76 where they're kind of giving us the background deets on how this all came together and whatnot.
Yeah, one of the things I had mentioned was like, okay, so if it has USB-C and it has power over USB-C, because at the time of the call it was still working. It like died like 2 hours later. Theoretically, this could be kind of the ideal, sometimes you're home, sometimes you're on the go, just plug in one cable and you have your whole workstation ready to go.
Yeah, that USB-C port does do power delivery and display. So when it works, let's talk about this for a second. So, when you're looking at this, what makes this like a work machine? Like, is this a viable ThinkPad competitor? Is this a real work machine? And there's a couple of things that we learned in that call. And that is that System 76 and HP kind of have a ongoing contract of some kind, some relationship.
They're lovers.
Yeah. And Carl, the CEO of System 76 in that call, said that System 76 is doing, quote, indefinite Q&A on every Pop! OS kernel release, every firmware release for the DevOne. System 76 and HP are both doing Q&A, and then they ship it upstream with Pop! OS, just all other Pop! OS stuff. So there's not like a special repo or anything for the DevOne users. But in that conversation, Carl said that the first couple of prototypes they got just arrived as parts in a box, not even assembled, and that they actually assembled the first one that they got to play with themselves. They put it together, and they brought that up to mention it's, there's real serviceability here. In fact, the HP laptop, the original HP laptop that this DevOne is forked from, has a 10 out of 10 on the iFixit repairability score. So these are things that I think about if I'm thinking about a work machine, right? If I'm thinking about Brent, right? I'm thinking about Wes. I'm thinking about our hosts like Mike and like Alex. And I'm thinking about what if JB got to a point where when we start working with somebody, just to make sure we had a really good setup, we just sent them a machine, pre-configured, ready to go to connect in. This is your podcast laptop. This would check those boxes for me. It would have the performance. It would have the noise profile that I'm looking for in a machine I record with. And it has the support. HP has dedicated support staff just for the DevOne line. That's a big deal. Like, that's a real commitment from a company side. And I'm curious what you picked up on this, but they won't come right out and say it, obviously. But I think they intend this to be like something iterating on, like they do another DevOne in a year or so. Like, this could be a multi-product line kind of thing if this first one is successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of tried to hold their feet to the fire a little bit, I think, in our call, right? Where it's pretty clear that this is not a one-time deal. I'm curious if they stick with the AMD infrastructure there. It seems, at least to my, off-the-cuff testing, it seems super fast. And that's just with the base 16 gigs of RAM. I mean, I was playing XCOM and getting my ass handed to me just with fantastic fidelity, though.
Again, this isn't a paid. This is not again.
Yeah, nobody's paying us for this.
Nobody's paying us. Mike bought his own.
That's why I can get a return.
And I will do the same if at the end of my review, which I think I'm trending that way right now. I haven't thrown like a lot of my media encoding jobs at. I haven't done a lot of that stuff yet, but one of the things that's giving me a pretty good sense that it's going to work out, and another reason why I think this is a good work laptop, is it's an open source driver stack in there. And ultimately, when it comes to Linux laptops, that's usually when things start getting a little buggy on you, is somewhere in the driver stack something isn't working, as Mike knows, as Mike has run into over the years.
Oh, Mike is... God damn you, Qualcomm. This is one of the reviews, one of the strangest ones I've ever done, in that usually I fall in love when I open the box because I'm easily bribed by stand-ups of robot guys. But then I start to like see all the flaws, right? The fan kicks up, I get moody about it, I get a decimal reader, things like that. This one, I was kind of like, okay. Well, actually, is that not plastic? The battery life is actually pretty good. Look at it adjusting the screen based on the content on the screen to try to minimize battery usage, but keep the same relative level of brightness, which I don't know if you've noticed that, but it does that if you leave that on.
Yeah, and it's a hell of a screen, too.
I mean, Visual Studio Code still thinks I'm 16 and have like, vampire vision. So I got to do the command, whatever it is, the command shift plus there to zoom in a little bit. That's just VS Code. I have literally been working in it nonstop. In fact, I'm probably up until today when I wanted to like see was it software. So I did the restore thing, the boot into recovery restore. It's not software, but it's now wiped and ready to be returned. 1,000 nits. I ended up turning it down because it's stupidly bright. But when I'm sitting in Florida on my porch working and it's Florida, it's super nice to have it not be completely washed out. I do tons of video calls. I look like a potato, but that's not its fault. If these AMD Ryzen chips keep going the way I think they're going, and if System 76 and HP stick with that platform, this could be a super viable, and I think it even is today, super viable MacBook alternative. Plus, you get all the games. And I mean, I'm not, all right, so like XCOM, Civ 6, I downloaded Age of Empires 4, but didn't get to play it yet, and Sonic Mania. So I'm not like, super gamer dude who, so I'm sure like for the serious newer stuff, you need a GPU. But if you like indie games or just kind of, puzzle or strategy games, this is just fine. Also, did you try their insane mouse?
Not yet, no.
Download the app, the mouse configurator. If you were a real gamer, I have a feeling you could do all kinds of crazy, I don't know if this is still a thing, but like StarCraft macros.
Yeah, it did seem like that mouse has support for essentially little mini macros.
Well, it has programmable, I forgot what they call them, profiles or context, something like that, in that app that was written by System 76 for that mouse on that machine.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting bit? So HP's decided to complete the picture of this. You can add a System 76 launch keyboard and their mouse, which they're actually pretty proud of this mouse. They actually dedicated a little bit of their presentation to just talking about the mouse. And you know what? After they talked about it, I was like, oh, that's why they like it so much. They call it the HP 935 Creator Wireless Mouse. It's an $80 edition, but they boast 12 weeks of battery life. It does a USB-A dongle, or it'll do Bluetooth. Like Mike said, it has 4 different profile supports, and then System 76 made that custom GUI for it. They're trying to complete a whole picture here, but you notice there's kind of a hole in this picture they're trying to complete.
Yeah, I did. I believe I brought it up that they really should have some calibrated HP monitor that's calibrated like that panel in the laptop that is USB-C, and it's just optimized to be the plug-in workstation.
Yeah, something that it's like consistent across the 2 screens. That'd be perfect.
And apparently nobody else thought of that on the call.
Maybe that's for Gen 2, right? Because if this thing sticks around, you get the sense that things like Core Boot are going to be part of it. Core Boot was on the list. We asked them about that. And they just ran out of time for version 1, is what they said.
The highlight of the call, I think, would be my fondness of liquor coming up as a quality assurance metric they have.
Amazing. Actually happened.
Nicely done, Carl. Nicely done.
Michael, Dominic, I understand you were going to do some spill testing.
But yeah, so that actually happened. They mentioned it, and it does supposedly have a spill-proof keyboard. I tried to get them to really get specific, and they were like, well...
Well, yeah. I'm like, well... And then, of course, I had to tell them it was broken, and the first thing I have to say, I did not spill anything.
Of course you did.
I had to open with that. I said, it's just got to start.
Of course you did. Yeah, because they know you, man. They know you.
They know me.
I'm still kind of getting acquainted with it, but I, like you, had a very similar experience where I took it out of the box, I got it plugged in, but I am so damn busy that I didn't even power it on for probably, the next day. I didn't even get to it because, I don't know, I got a lot. And so I fire it up. I have set up so many laptops over the years that I can start to get a sense of a machine pretty quickly and get an idea if it's going to be making a lot of noise and if it feels hot and okay, it's passing all of those things. It's doing a really good job. It wasn't until I wrapped up the workday and I just I put everything away and I just stayed here at the studio a little bit so I could take advantage of the bandwidth. And I just started throwing everything at it because I was kind of in a rush. And so, I was using it in anger, as they say, although, not angry, but just slamming everything at it. And that's when it started to impress me. When a machine can take everything and you can tell it still has more to give, I like that a lot. And you can upgrade this thing to 64 gigs of RAM. So if you need more headroom than 16 gigs, you can do it. I just don't think you can do it at time of configuration. But I get the sense, too, that you could probably replace other components in there as well. I'm tempted to open up my review unit and see just how serviceable it really is, because they did stress that. I don't know. I'm tempted to say this thing is a contender for the crown of king of Linux laptops. They are in it to win it. They really are. And we did ask them, how did this relationship come to be? That was a question that was asked, which they weren't going to touch on. And it sounds very much like HP got serious about wanting to get into this segment and realized they needed a topic expert. And my observation on that call that we had is that HP intimately understands the hardware, the supply chain, and the relationships with AMD. But System 76 truly intuitively understands the Linux community and shipping a product for that crowd. And so I think those two things are actually working pretty well together. It sounds like HP realized they needed that topic expert. HP reached out to Carl, took a little bit of time. They started talking. They kind of realized, okay, actually there is some things that kind of work here. And, specifically, Carl said, at the end of the day, this is an opportunity to reach more Linux users on a tier 1 hardware OEM. And they didn't build Pop! OS to only run on System 76 hardware. They built it for anyone to use. So, it gets Pop! OS out there too, which is a great thing for them. But I feel like they actually committed, right? When you hear that they just kind of banged out a GUI tool to configure HP's mouse, and that they're doing indefinite Q&A, and they have DevOnes in-house that they're testing firmware releases on and kernel releases on. It really, it seems like often when System 76 does something, they really go all in on it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where this product line goes and when I can get my monitor.
Linode.com/coder. Go there to get $100 in 60-day credit on a new account, and it's a great way to support the show. Linode is fast, reliable cloud hosting. Everybody in this audience eventually has a need for that. And unlike those crazy, hyper-complicated duopoly platforms that want to lock you into their esoteric interface with their esoteric names for everything, Linode is classic hosting where you have full control. I mean, don't get me wrong. They got a great dashboard. They make it super easy to do one-click deployments and manage your DNS and set up VLANs and work with whatever infrastructure management tools you might have, like Terraform, Ansible, Kubernetes, etc. But also, if you just want to stand up some infrastructure, if you just want to take advantage of some really fast, really reliable, really well-supported hosting, you want to run something on Linux, you want to build a project, Linode's great for that. For an individual or for a business. Like I run my family gaming servers on Linode. I've mentioned this before, Starbound, fun little game, right? Minecraft, kids love it. Why not create a safe space for them on the internet, on my own Linode, or like my own SyncThing server, stuff like that. But we use it on our back end. In fact, we're using it more than ever, and pretty soon it'll be powering so much more. And to that end, Linode has just upgraded their managed database services. So earlier, it was just MySQL. And they launched that in May, and that's been super helpful because Linode knows how to do this stuff. They know how to do hosting. They can take care of that. Well, this week, they've added Postgres and MongoDB. Well, we use Postgres for several things, and Wes and I are already talking about migrating to this. Why wouldn't you, right? Outsource the responsibility of that maintenance and monitoring, all the burdens that make running a database a pain in the butt. Outsource it to Linode. Let their experts do it. I am so hyped that they finally launched this, and I can't wait to switch some of our backend stuff over to it. That's just great. I also love their object storage. I think you'll be blown away. I think you'll be really impressed. Go try it. Go get that $100 and support the show. What you do, right now in your browser, you go to linode.com/coder. That's a vote of confidence for the Coder program And it gets you that $100 for 60 days on a new account. Linode.com/coder. Well, we have a little bit of leftovers, just brief leftovers from WWDC, and we have some text editor news, drama going on, I suppose. So let's start there. GitHub has announced they are sunsetting the Atom text editor. And the original, I think, creator of Atom has announced that he's introducing Zed, a collaborative code editor written in Rust.
He ain't going out like that. That's right. He's coming back.
Yeah, although, Zed was announced first, I believe, in the order of events, and then the sunsetting of Atom was announced. And you caught that. You were like, hey, this is weird. The Atom guy just announced a new project.
Yep.
And of course, it's built in Rust because everything is built in Rust these days. There's a better way to write code.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Mission-critical tools should be hyper-responsive. Real-time collaboration products are better software. Conversations should happen close to code. Oh yeah, definitely needs a chat client. I was just complaining to my wife that ultimately every tech product evolves to have a chat platform. Every tech product ultimately has a chat platform.
No.
Honestly, I'd give it a go. I'd give a Rust text editor a go.
I will too, just because it's not Electron.
Yeah, exactly. Any thoughts about Atom sunsetting?
I mean, it was inevitable, right? It's, VS Code exists. They were under the same parent, right? GitHub, effectively, because Microsoft bought GitHub. So only one could survive? I don't know. How many Electron editors do you need? Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It feels a little sad because whenever something gets replaced and killed, it's just, but it is the right call. I happen to know there's audience members out there that love Atom. So
yeah, you hear from them every once in a while. Every time VS Code releases a new feature that's tied to Azure, they're like, haha, see, we warned you.
Yeah.
But alas, they also owned Atom.
I think you're right.
Get off my bridge.
All right, little WWDC leftovers. Just a couple of things that didn't make into our show because, I don't know, I was moderately disappointed with our coverage. Mostly things I didn't mention because I was in such a rush. But then again, I listened to some other podcast coverage and they get so drunk on the hype that it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are you disappointed in? We managed to stay not Apple high.
I do think we did a good job there. We did not get crazy. We did get a follow-up from Apple. Stage Manager on the iPad does require an M1 iPad. Only the M1 iPads have that virtual memory space. We suspeculated. That's right. Suspeculated. But Apple confirmed. Also, didn't mention it in our coverage. No tease of the Mac Pro, which seems late at this point, and no hints at all about AR or VR, even though that was massively hyped before the event. There was nothing there that kind of implied that. But I think the big thing that we didn't know at the time we recorded, but we now know after the fact, Apple has created a binary for x86 Linux boxes that's Rosetta. They've created Rosetta 2 for Linux that'll work on any modern ARM processor. Any ARM processor that meets the 8.2 spec or later can run this Apple Rosetta binary. Now, you got to get your hands on it, and the way you get it is pretty ridiculous. You have to be on a Mac using a hypervisor that's probably Apple's, and then you have to mount a directory inside your VM to get access to it. But assuming, and I believe it's already happened, the Linux community just figures out how to extract that, and I think that's already happened. You could throw this conceivably in an x86 container and then go run it on an ARM 8.2 or newer CPU. Doesn't have to be a Mac box, in theory. Rosetta for Linux, an actual Linux ELF binary. That seems like a big deal to me. That also seems to signal that Rosetta is going to be around for a long time, and we're going to be able to run x86 apps on Macs for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be important for some developers. Yeah, Rosetta's got at least 5 to 10 years, right?
I guess the difference, although I don't know, I just was reading speculation. I guess the difference was Rosetta 1 contained a lot of code licensed from IBM, and Rosetta 2 is an Apple creation. So they own it all. So they could just run it forever indefinitely if they wanted to.
And why not? I mean, maybe not forever, but...
Also, just a side note, not really relevant to the show, but we didn't really understand at the time, but Apple announced a buy now, pay later service. And Apple is actually going to be the lender in that situation. Apple has just turned into a lender. I believe they're working with Goldman Sachs again on this. They will handle the lending themselves for a buy now, pay later offering using Apple Pay. How dystopian is that?
It's a long way from the kids with the rainbow apple and the pirate flag. That's for damn sure.
Wow, man. Wow.
I mean, we're talking acid trips and ashrams to we're in a deep partnership with our good friends at Goldman Sachs, and we're now a bank.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
Also, just to kind of round this out, Intel CEO Pat was talking big at an event, The
word you're looking for is drunk.
Yeah, I think he might have been drunk. Or at least delusional. He said in a quote, in an interview to Axios, he said that they think they can win Apple's business back. He says, quote, Apple decided they could do a better chip themselves than we could. And, they did a pretty good job. So what I have to do is create a better chip than they can do themselves. I would hope to win them back, to win a piece of their business, as well as many other pieces of their business over time.
Now, in other news, I just got this text message transcript. Tim, I'm sorry. What did I do? Please call. No reply. Tim, I miss you. Now it's 2:30. The bar has closed. You know what, Tim? If you like that M1 so much, then you can have them. Next day around noon. Pat, you're starting to scare me. Please leave me alone. It's over. I have my own chip engineers now. All the best. I wish you a happy life.
Oh, man.
Your friend, Tim.
Oh, God.
Pat wakes up 3 hours later at 3:30. Tim, you're killing me. I miss you so much. Have you heard about Gen 12? ? Happy face? No reply.
That is probably exactly what happened. I think you nailed that.
I think I just got it, right? I got it.
Yeah, I watch sometimes the CNBCs, and the Intel Pat comes on there, the Intel CEO.
It's so sad.
And they're like, boy, looking at the numbers, Intel is sort of set for like devastating losses in the latter half of the year.
And he's like, sure are. I mean, oh, wait.
No, he's like, no, it's going to be great. There's going to be a big surge of computer purchases in the fall. And
have you heard of Ohio? Ohio, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, he's just anyways, they're so screwed. But Qualcomm, though, they are bullish. They're going to nail this. Qualcomm's chief executive said on Thursday, they believe the company actually will have the best chip on the market soon, with help from a team of chip architects who formerly worked at Apple, but now work at Qualcomm.
That's how you do it. Qualcomm's like, we're not even going to pretend anymore. We're just going to bribe a bunch of dudes from Apple. Let's go.
That's pretty impressive. That is.
For the record, if you guys like the sad breakup text message of tech executives, I have many of those in the bank.
I feel like it could be a series right there.
Boostagram.
We did have a couple of boosts come in, but the show, as we record this here show, I think our show's only been out for like 12 hours, 13 hours.
Yeah, we're like back to back.
But the Golden Dragon sent us in 222 sats. Missed a duck. -1 duck today. So I can get through a week on these sats. Glad to hear that the DevOne is a great system to dev on. Maybe one you should go full Inception on and dev on the DevOne using the DevOne Linux distribution. Whoa! He sent that in live to the show. Very sneaky, duck.
Damn. All right.
Very nice. I feel like you get a special boost yell for sending that in live. Boost! We also got a thanks from Cos Peland. He sent in his classic 3690 sats. And then we got one in here that I think is going to get you fired up. I almost don't want to read their name. Let's see if I can find it. Because I don't want to read their name on air.
It's Egon.
Is it? No, I don't. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if you don't, we're just going to assume it's Egon.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Egon. I know there was one more in here. Here it is. Here we go. All right, so this was actually a pretty generous 5,000 sats
Boost
from Crashmaster 18. And he's asking about an app that smells a lot like Alice. And he wants to know if you're familiar with it, but I don't even want to give them a plug on air.
Ooh, I've not.
I will PM you the name of this people. Here, I'll put the boost in here. See if do you recognize that name? No, you tell me. Anyways, the Crashmaster wanted to know, so I'll pass it along to you. You go get him. I hate to see you go into war on the air, but Crashmaster wanted you to be aware.
I'll take a look. I do not. This does not look familiar.
All right. Well, I also want to thank our members. Thank you very much. We get offers to do things that you would be surprised. We have gotten offers to do paid hardware reviews. We have gotten offers to do paid interviews. We get approached by all kinds of sponsors that are kind of probably not the sorts that you would probably prefer to hear from.
Inebriated chip executives.
Well, yeah. I would take that sponsorship.
I would take that Intel money like that. Would I use an Intel machine? No, but I would take their money.
I would love that. But no, like, you notice how we don't have mattress sponsors, right? Or like a Squarespace, like these ones that, come on.
Have you noticed a lot of the higher end podcasts are now offering you, shall we say, sausage pills for male enhancement?
Isn't that fascinating to watch? Also, having a membership feeds let us do things like avoid dynamic inserts on our back catalog to monetize the back catalog, right? Like it's just, the membership it's like a real key pillar to how we do the show. So thank you to our Coder QA team at coderqa.co. As a thank you, get an ad-free version of the feed. I am working also on a live version of the feed, but it's going to take a little bit of tech back-end work. And you get the Coderly Report, coderqa.co. I think we should also mention that you and I will not be live the week of the 20th. Monday the 20th, you and I are traveling, and there will be no Coder live that week, but we will have one in the feeds. So
we should clarify, we are traveling, but because of the laws of physics, we are not traveling to the same place or together.
Or at the same time in the same space, because that would be, you can't have two atoms share the same.
Oh, can we just do a quick Star Trek update before we?
Oh, yeah, totally. You got a Strange Worlds update already?
I continue to like Strange Worlds, and I've once again finished the original series.
Oh, season 3 could be the trickiest to get through.
I just finished it.
Of TOS.
Yeah, I just finished it.
I know, that can be a little tricky. It's not the best season.
The last episode's super weird, but I'm at I'd say a fork, but it's more of a trident in the road. The obvious choice, I think, is Next Generation, but that's the one I've watched the most.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of bald dudes who pretend to be French, but are definitely British.
Yes. They try to retcon that in Picard, by the way.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do. They try to.
Oh, that's terrible. And then, of course, there's like, well, should I give Disco another chance? Because, Star Trek with good effects is actually kind of cool. And then there's the one I keep neglecting because it's Enterprise. I mean,
I was hoping you were going to say that.
I've never really given it a fair shake.
So I just finished season 1 of Enterprise, and I'm just starting season 2 this week. Probably this weekend, I'm starting season 2. And I initially didn't love Enterprise, but I watched all of it when it aired. And I have to tell you, rewatching it now, if it's been a while since you watched it, rewatching it now, it is so much better than I remember. And I think in part because Discovery and Picard have changed my perspectives a little bit. This is the last Trek filmed in the traditional Trek style, with the character actors that spanned multiple series and some of the same production crew. So it has a very familiar style, but it has the best effects of any of the Trek series. And the other thing that is extremely enjoyable is everyone is competent at their jobs. And they're ahead of the audience most of the time. Like, when you're watching something
you mean the characters, not the actors, right?
Yeah. Like when you're watching something on Discovery and you're like, well, if they would just do XYZ, this problem would be solved and it's not really a big deal. And they don't do that for like 3 episodes and it drives you crazy. In Enterprise, right as you start going, well, if they would just, they do it. They do it because they're competent and they're smart. And it's so much better than I expected. It's so much better. And it has been very enjoyable to go back and rewatch it. And if I'm enjoying season 1 this much, I can't imagine how much I'm going to enjoy season 3 and 4, because I remember season 1 and 2 being the rockiest of them. And I was just looking at Rotten Tomatoes. Now has an audience average score of 79%. And the actors who play Malcolm and Trip, they've recently started a podcast called Shuttle Pod 1. I believe it's based on their episode they did.
Oh, to Overcast.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's on YouTube as a video production too. And they've been bringing on former directors and their co-stars. They just did one with Rick Berman, and they just did a 2-parter with Brandon Braga. And they were the people running production at the time. So I just started watching Enterprise again, and then they launched that podcast, and then they're bringing on people, and they're talking behind the scenes about the first few seasons. It has been so neat. It's you got to go Enterprise, man. You have got to do Enterprise. You got to.
Can I throw 2 curveballs at you?
Oh yeah, of course.
I have never completed all of Stargate, but I love Stargate.
Oh, okay.
And if I want to be a deep nerd, although I don't know that I have the stomach for this one, Babylon 5.
Man, I have tried Babylon 5. I can't get through that.
I feel like I should like it, but I've never made it past.
I can't get through that first season. I've tried so hard. I just watched a YouTuber recap the Babylon 5 series, and it did make me want to watch it. You know, Enterprise isn't going anywhere, right? So you could do a little bit of deviation. Have you done The Expanse yet?
No, I have not. Is that a comedy, or is that Orwell? Or Orville, whatever.
Yeah, that's Orville. Oh boy. Oh boy.
I used to just watch TNG over and over again.
I'm freaking out. Oh God, Mike. Oh God, I would kill to be you right now. I am so jealous that you haven't seen The Expanse yet.
Feel it. So where is The Expanse available to me?
Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And I took 3 passes at the first few episodes because I didn't like the character it initially focuses on. But that character isn't the main character of the series. And by the time I got through the first season, I was really into it. In fact, if a wizard came out of a genie came out of a bottle, and they said to me, Chris, you can have one wish in the world, it wouldn't be, rich. It wouldn't be that I live forever. It wouldn't be any of that. It would be make Star Trek like The Expanse. It is.
Ooh, you're writing some
so
checks.
Good. It is so good. It's what's going to be our future. What The Expanse. It's almost inevitable. It's if humanity just kind of spread out into our solar system, but we never go beyond our solar system, right? Because this show actually takes place with it uses the limitations of space, right? The physics of space. They don't have like crazy technology that wouldn't actually exist. Combat is incredible because it's like it really would be in space, and they nail the realism so well. They make such good characters, such good storytelling, and then on top of that, the books are incredible. And it's one of those rare things where the books don't really take anything away from the show. They just add more, context. You could watch the show and never read the books, or you could watch all of the show and then read the books, or you could read the book and watch the show together. Like I've done all of that.
Oh my God. Sold. That's what I'm doing.
It's so great. And the audiobooks from Audible are some of my favorite audiobooks of all time. You got to go look up the Expanse series. It's kind of hard because there's like a lot of those books. Only the first 6 books are really where the TV show takes place. Some of the best television ever created, ever. And to just give you an idea, so the show started on Sci-Fi, but it was so expensive to produce that Sci-Fi shut it down. But the fans loved the show so much, they freaked out. And one of the fans was Jeff Bezos. So Jeff Bezos just bought the whole thing and moved it over to Prime. Yeah.
Like, thanks.
So good, man. We're so spoiled. I'd love to watch that again.
All right. So with apologies to Captain Archer yet again, that seems to keep happening every year. The Expanse it is, and I see that there's 7 seasons currently, so this will take a while.
Yeah. Oh, they're not too long. They're so good. So good. Oh, so good. Oh man. Anyways, I got it. I got to go lay down now. I'm so excited. Let's wrap this up. I'm verklempt now. Is there anywhere you want to send people this week?
Go to alice.dev.
Nice and easy. He's at Dumanuko on the Twitter. We'll have links there. I'm at Chris LES. The podcast is at Coder Radio Show, and the whole network's at Jupiter Signal. There's a whole network of shows. We did a breakdown on that Rosetta story, the details of that in Linux Action News. And I'm going to do my Linux user's perspective review on Linux Unplugged of the HP DevOne. I'm going to throw some benchmarks at it, really push it all the way in Sunday's Linux Unplugged. So check that out. Links to what we talked about today at coder.show/470. That's where you'll find our contact form and our RSS feed. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. See you right back here next week.